Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is episode number 2 of our Homeschooling High School series, and today we're talking all about high school credits. My name is Kristen Perez, and I am helping parents just like you get started in your homeschooling journey with confidence and efficiency, driven by purpose, passion, and a plan. Yep, I love alliteration. I'm super tacky like that. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we go. So we are talking about homeschooling in high school today and throughout this whole series. Now, if you missed episode 1, that was all about what you needed to do before you withdrew. And if you haven't watched that, you haven't withdrawn yet, that is one you're not going to want to miss. So be sure to catch that right after this one. Today, we're delving into the world of credits. And if you want to follow along this entire journey, be sure to click subscribe and like so you get all those notifications. Again, yes, I'm tacky like that. I am begging. Thank you. So, what do we need to know about high school credits? What's a credit? How many do we need to graduate? Which courses do we need? And why? Quite often, my tagline you'll hear me say is let your purpose drive your plan. But when it comes to high school, parents, we need to reframe that verbiage. We need to go back and say, let your child's purpose drive their plan. And I know you're going to tell me, but my 14-year-old doesn't know anything yet. They're a knucklehead. I get it. Yes, they are, probably at this point in time. But the bottom line is that their high school experience is preparing them for their next endeavor outside of high school, outside of this 12 years that we've just spent learning and kind of under the care of a parent. Now they're working towards their post-high school goals, their adulting years. I know, it's scary, my friends. But at 14 and 15, they can start beginning to think about it, because by 17 and 18, they're going to appreciate the fact that they took a little bit of foresight back then to set them up well for getting into the programs, whatever those might be, that they want by the time they graduate. So what constitutes a credit? Well, a credit or a unit, those can be used interchangeably, basically describes an amount of time or a set of standards in a given course of study. So common units might be described as Carnegie units. We use those here in Georgia. A lot of school districts, a lot of states use that. And that basically says one Carnegie unit is equal to a full year course. That equates to about 120 hours of study, meaning a semester course is going to be a half year or valued at about 60 hours of study. And that works well in the public system. But when you're homeschooling high school, you can move a little quicker, and it may not take your child 120 hours to finish a unit of study or a course of study. So they might delve into a textbook and be a really fast reader. They might do assignments very quickly, and they can finish it a lot faster than that given amount of time. Is that okay? Yes, as long as you're not bound by time restrictions according to your state, right? So if you do, say, a power homeschool class, your kid will probably finish that course of study hitting all the objectives in less amount of time than they would, say, in a public school. One of the benefits of homeschooling, if I do say so myself, it also means that that time that they're not spending in that 150 hours, say, could be used in another course of study or used for passion and interest-driven work, or maybe some paid work, something like that, internships, apprentices, etc. In California, you might see something like 10 credits equaling a full year course. It is all the same thing. It's tomato, tomato. It will be all broken down in the same way when they hit those programs down the line. Those schools will know how to translate that appropriately. Now, if your child is doing dual enrollment, you're going to notice that colleges typically work on a 3-credit scale. 3 credits is 1 semester of college, but the value of that in high school is actually equivalent to 1 full year course. All right, so 1 dual enrollment class equals a full high school course. But dual enrollment is another topic for another day. So again, you are going to need to look at your state's laws, which is what we're talking about next. So who determines how many credits your child needs to graduate while homeschooling. Keep in mind, we are talking about homeschool students. Public schools may have their own requirements. Now, it is a value, I think, personally, to look at those public school standards just to make sure we as homeschoolers align, because most of the time we're doing this for our child's advantage, right? So you need to find out what the state deems appropriate as the number of credits, and then also your child's post-high school goals. Those will help you determine how many credits they need. The number of credits varies per state and with the child's educational goals. So most states in a public system are going to require about 18 to 26 credits to qualify for their diploma. Again, that's in public school. In homeschool, the laws vary drastically by state. I saw one state, I don't think they had any requirements on graduation. It basically said the parent can decide when their course of study is done and they can issue a diploma accordingly. Other states will be much more stringent and they're going to want a certain number of courses to be complete. So understand your state's laws. But most importantly, you need to look at your students' goals and determine what credits they need based on their goals. So if they intend to go to a university, they're going to want to follow those admissions standards, guidelines for the school of their choice in order to be prepared and qualified for those entrance requirements. Okay, so you want to make sure you're aligning to both of those, the state and their goals, in terms of how many credits. Who determines which courses your child needs to take while homeschooling? Again, public might be different, but just like how many, your state is the first priority to look at. So what does your state say you need to study? And we're talking about which courses: language, arts, maths, etc. Secondly, you're going to look at your post-high school goals. What do they want to do when they graduate, and make sure those courses align. And we'll dig a little bit deeper right up here now. So take into consideration your child's post-high school goals when planning out their courses, as well as their activities, their service engagements. And then as they work towards those goals, you're going to strive towards meeting or exceeding the base requirement for those programs. We want them to have that advantage again, right? So each child is going to have their own skill set, their own abilities, their strengths, and their own program desires. So for university, if they want to get into university, you're going to check admissions requirements, okay? And you're going to look at the GPA requirements. You're going to look at rigor requirements, rigor courses being AP, dual enrollment, IB. Some of those top tier universities want 5 to 12 rigor courses. And they need to know that if one of those universities is on their list, okay? Trade schools. What are the admissions requirements for the school of choice? Do they need to have had an apprenticeship or an internship prior? Do they need a high school diploma, or would a GED suffice? You need to know those. And then as you develop your course load, try to engage in courses that would support their plan, or at least give them some experience in that trade so they understand what it's all about and if they really like it or not, right? Are you applying to the military? What's their base level? Generally speaking, it's high school diploma or GED. But are you trying to get into a higher level in the military that requires a little bit more specialization? Again, you're going to need to look at that. Sports, fine arts, kind of self-explanatory, right? If your child wants to go into an art school, they probably need to have some sort of arts background. So flood their coursework with classes that align to that goal for them, all right? Which courses will my child need? Well, it depends. Generally, college-bound students may want to look at the following standards. This is kind of that highest level right now, and generally speaking, very close to what most states would require of a graduating senior in public school. You can look at your child's programs and goals, though, and align or adjust it to meet those programs. And then, of course, aligning to their skill sets and their abilities. So language arts, we typically need about 4 credits. So generally English 1, English 2, English 3 and 4, 11 and 12 are often at your child's discretion. You have a little bit of decision making there. Maybe they want to take an AP class, a creative writing class, a poetry class. Any of those qualify as English credits. So again, look at what they're interested in so that way they are engaging in the class with more passion and interest than if they have to take just sort of a standard English class that's kind of hashing out those same details of grammar, et cetera, right? Is there something more interesting to them? Find it. Math, 4 credits. In high school, your traditional trajectory is going to be Algebra 1, unless they already took it in 8th grade, Geometry, Algebra 2, and a 4th math. That 4th math you can really play with to align to their goals. So if you're trying to get into a competitive university in a STEM field, you'll probably want to math up a little bit. You're going to go into calculus or trigonometry or statistics. If you may want to go into a business field or a trade, you could take a math that is a little bit more life applicable, practical math, business math, or personal finance. Those are amazing choices because they really do help when kids get out of high school to manage their personal finances or the finances of the business they'll be working in. Science, 4 credits. Generally speaking, biology, chemistry, physics in that order. Why do I say that? Well, in biology, it's a topics-based class. You don't need a lot of prior knowledge to support your learning in there. You read it, you learn it, you memorize it, you move on, right? Some synthesis, of course. Chemistry and physics, on the other hand, are very, very math heavy. So they need to have algebra and maybe even algebra 2 to support the skills in those 2 classes. Now, if they're going into a STEM field, chemistry and physics are probably very warranted for your child. If they are not, you'll want to look at science options that align to their interests. And there are so many available: earth science, environmental science, astronomy, zoology. Maybe if they want to be a vet tech, you could look at something that would align to that interest level. There's just thousands of choices out there. Go and dig into classes that will make them passionate about learning, and so that it won't seem like school is always such a slog. We don't want it to be a slog. We want it to be passionate and enjoyable for them and make them feel like they're doing this with a purpose, all right? And a purpose that's going to align to their plan later on. Social studies, 4 credits, generally speaking, sometimes 3, but U.S. history is generally on the books there, world history, and then typically speaking, we're seeing American government and civics being 1 class for a half unit, and then economics being a half unit. And then that is 3 total. Your 4th social studies could be some sort of social studies elective, like epic moments in world history or psychology or a humanities or a cultural studies. Again, find the one that lights your child up. There are just hundreds of places to find them, and we're going to talk about that next time. So I won't go too deep into there. World language, typically 2 credits of the same language. So if you take French 1 your first year, you want to take French 2 the next year, or German 1, German 2. You get the idea. It does not matter what language you choose, but a lot of universities are looking for a language credit, okay, or 2 language credits. A lot of universities are also now accepting American Sign Language, which is phenomenal. What a great class to take. Or Georgia is actually accepting computer programming languages, so delving into the 21st century skills here, C++, Java programming. But again, you're going to want to look at what your state requires first, and then those program requirements second, and interests should then come into play right after that. And electives. Now, depending on how many core courses you had to take, that will leave room for the remaining electives. So most of the time you're talking 3 to about 9 electives in your course, your 4 years of high school, and they can range from anything from academic electives to extra sciences, maybe some STEM programming, career, technical classes, all the way over to fine arts, sports, health, PE. All of those are great choices. Actually, health and PE are quite often required, so you do want to check with your state on those ones. Make sure you slide those ones in. And again, course content is usually not defined by the state, just the title of the class. So find a class with content that they enjoy and is applicable to them, okay? Whew, that's a lot, right? It's actually not that bad. There are courses out there for everybody. And next time, we are going to talk about, I need to teach what now? Yes, talking about outsourcing those classes that we might not want to teach. So I appreciate you joining me for this little webinar here today. Stick with me through to the end. We have a few more to go. Do hit subscribe and like if you love this. And of course, feel free to share it with your friends. I'll see you again next time.